everyone, and welcome to Schools. We are here today with Superintendent of Schools for Beautiful Plains School Division, Jason Young. Thank you for joining me today.
My pleasure. Thanks for having me, Rain.
And we're just going to kind of take a look at a high-level look at the school division, what's kind of been going on for the last couple of years, changes we've seen, and some new programs that have come up. So let's start with the schools. Last time we talked, we were seeing week over week, month over month, increase in population in the schools, mostly in Nipawin, but also throughout the division. Are we still kind of seeing that in the area?
Yeah, we are. We continue to see growth in our school division. There's obviously highs and lows in those growth periods, but the one change we've seen, I think, in our trends in our school division is typically we were seeing growth really in September and in May. And that kind of aligned more with the growth or with the majority of our kids that were coming from a different country. Mm-hmm. Now we're seeing growth throughout the year. So we have incoming kids throughout the entire year. Where we're at population-wise is our Nipawin schools are about 1,500 kids now combined. And 8 years ago, we were at 1,500 kids as a division as a whole. So,
which includes Carberry and the small schools and the colony
small
schools.
Carberry, colony schools. Our colony schools make up about 200 kids in our schools division now. So yeah, we continue to grow really throughout our whole division, with the bulk still being in Nipawin.
Yeah. What kind of challenges does that pose for the classrooms when you have a significant number of students coming throughout the year rather than in bunches beginning, end of year?
Yeah, several challenges, I would say. I'll start with space. Obviously, space is a challenge, and we can speak to that a little bit more later. Yeah. Staffing levels is always a challenge, because now, our goal is always to start our year overstaffed. By mid-year, kind of be at the staffing levels we want, and then by the end of the year, we're slightly understaffed. And then obviously at a classroom level for our teachers, it's a challenge with transiency, with kids coming in, kids coming out all the time. You're always kind of picking up kids where they're at that point in time and bringing them up to speed. So for sure at the classroom level, that poses some different challenges that our staff have done a fantastic job of dealing with.
And I would think I'd be safe saying the majority of students coming in throughout the year is through immigration into town. It's not through people coming from other places in
we see both now, to be honest. As the community grows, we're seeing kids come from other parts of Manitoba or the other parts of the country. We still are dealing with a lot of immigration, but I would say probably about 30% of our growth right now is not due to immigration.
Really?
It's due to expansion of the community and expansion of other businesses and people that come along with that.
So that would be a big change from a while ago.
That would be a change as well. And we're also seeing a diversity therefore that, is somewhat new to us in the last 2 or 3 years, where the bulk of our growth previously was from 1 or 2 different countries, and now we're seeing that diversify to far more countries.
Which is, again, a challenge all on its own.
Challenge with language for sure, and cultural barriers and some of those challenges, and learning to understand each other better. So, but good for our community, good for our kids to see those different parts of the world and cultures. So.
Yeah, oh for sure. So let's talk about space.
Okay.
Right now we do have the 3 schools in town. We are using, I think, all of our possible portable classrooms that we have.
Yes. So where we're at space-wise, and I'll go to the new school in a moment, but Nipawin Middle School, our latest edition, was opened in 2019, and it was filled by the time it was built. We have 9 portables that are in use in Nipawin, and they're all being used. So 4 of those are at Kellington, and 5 of those are kind of shared between Nipawin Middle School and the high school. Like I said, our population in our 3 Nipawin schools is about 1,500 kids right now, and that is changing as we sit here probably. But comfortable capacity without our portables in our 3 Nipawin schools is about 1,200 kids. Roughly, if we look at about 400 kids per school, that's kind of where we're comfortable. And then you add 9 portables to that and take your class sizes of 20 to 25 and do the math. That's about where we're at. We're at a point now where we're needing to move from 5 classes in every grade, because that's what we have, K-8, 5, to 6. And we don't have the space to do that. So waiting for kind of a new school and things to happen there. We requested 6 portables for this year, and that was so we could relocate a grade from Kellington, because we need to do that yet again. And those portables didn't arrive, so the ramification of that is our class sizes grow a little bit.
Yeah.
So that's kind of on the ground, what's happening with space. I'm sure your next question is about the new school.
Yep.
and where we're at with
You
that.
knew we were going to get there eventually.
Yeah.
I know it was kind of put on hold as the government changed.
Yeah, so historical context, I guess, for our communities that are watching and don't know the history there. In March of 2023, the government of the day announced that there would be a new vocational school built in Nipwa, and it was one of 9 schools announced at that time. And the model that they were going to build these 9 new schools was called the P3 model, which stands for Public-Private Partnership. And the intent with those 9 schools was to have them built, open, and operational for the fall of 2027. The government that's in power now voiced their displeasure quite loudly with the P3 model. So it was little surprise to us that when the new government came in power that was all put on hold. Mm-hmm. And so that was 2 years ago. And I think that's our greatest challenge now is we're 2 years removed from that announcement. Obviously the new school isn't being built, and nor is any of those 9 schools being built.
Right.
So it's been 2 years where no new schools have been built in Manitoba, and several school divisions, Beautiful Plains being one of them, are feeling those pressures of growth. The government of the day now has indicated that they will be proceeding with a couple new schools in the coming year, but we don't know where we are on that order. Okay. That remains to be seen. So what's happening in the background, I guess, with the new school is we continue to work with the landowner to acquire the land. And the landowner's been fantastic in working with us with the changing dynamics of government. We continue to work with the town on a development agreement for the property. And we've also done some work with the architectural firm that we worked on with Nipwa Middle School in the background of what not only the physical layout of the building could look like when we proceed, but also what the grounds could look like. Right. And we're doing that work so that when the government does finally decide to proceed with the school, which we anticipate will happen, we're well positioned to move on that.
Because certainly the population we have right now is unsustainable with the space we have.
Yeah, correct. And
something has to happen.
Something has to happen. And what we know now is as our population continues to grow, our physical space hasn't. So, you know, and Kellington's a landlocked school. There's not a lot we can do with that. Mm-hmm. And even Nipwa Middle School and the high school, there's space challenges there, which is where we would put and where we will put the additional portables when we get them. Not ideal, but, you know, the ideal location is to put additional space on our new land, but to put portables out there with no gym, no washrooms, doesn't make any sense. So.
But every time you put a portable outside of a school, you lose outdoor space for your students as well. So.
Correct. Yeah. Like we do have the luxury a little bit that we've got accustomed to at Nipwa Middle School and the high school. We did have 2 full fields and some of those things that are a luxury, I would say, to us. Mm-hmm. But those luxuries are quickly being eaten up by portable classrooms. And
certainly even when the middle school was built, that was outdoor space that was
correct.
That was used up to expand as well. Now, as far as where the new school, first of all, not canceled. Just to be very clear, not canceled, put on hold. That's that kind of
I think that's a fair statement.
Yeah.
Obviously, the myth was out there, you know, when the government changed that it was canceled.
Yeah.
And we have not heard that from anyone.
Yeah.
Like we know there's a lot of schools that need to be built in the province, and I would say where we are in that pecking order, like I said, I'm not sure. So I would say it's bumped.
Yeah. Fair enough. And certainly, you know, at the last council meeting that I was at, they seemed to be having some fruitful discussions they were talking about with officials from the provincial government. So hopefully something will come of that. Yeah,
correct. We continue, the town continues to advocate for our communities, obviously, and we continue to advocate for our kids in our communities. And the government has to make those difficult decisions on where those priorities are.
And certainly, even though nothing is being constructed on the new school, nothing is announced, in the space where it's going to be, there is still infrastructure being put in. Like the groundwork is kind of being laid for something to go there.
Correct.
So there's not, I would say there's not nothing happening.
Yeah, I would say that's fair. The
Yeah.
town is working with us to ensure that that space is ready when we need it to be. And, so that puts us in a better spot. And like I said, we're working with an architectural firm on what the design could be. So we're trying to streamline things so that when we get the green light, we're positioned to do that.
Ready to kind of move very quickly.
Yeah.
Certainly we won't see it in 2027, but we can maybe shorten the timelines a little bit.
That's our hope, yeah.
But in the short term, we are still kind of crammed into the space that we have. What kind of pressures did that put on then on teaching positions and positions within the schools?
Yeah, so like the pressure on our teachers and on our schools is when you have limited space, inevitably class sizes grow, and that's the result of that. And then trying to balance that with the province has announced that they want to keep class sizes small in K to 3, which we've always valued as a school division and always tried to do that. But the reality is when you have limited space, kids have to go somewhere.
Yeah.
So, we might start our school year with class sizes of 18. And like I said, we have 5 classes in every grade. And if we grow by 20 kids, then our class size in each of those 5 classes is 20. And, and unfortunately, when you grow, the kids don't come where you want them to necessarily be. So if we have room in grade 4 and we get a bunch of grade 3s, it isn't ideal, but it's the reality.
And then certainly when you move then to having 6 classes in each grade, then you have staffing issues, I would think, that you suddenly have the need for an extra classroom teacher in each grade.
Yeah, so recruitment of staff continues to be a challenge for us for a variety of reasons. One, just with growth alone. We added 9 teachers last year to the school division, and we were lucky to be able to hire 9 teachers. But shortages of staff, and not just teachers, whether it's EAs, bus drivers, custodial staff, is not unique to schools. It's not unique to Beautiful Plains. It's across our province and across our country.
Yeah.
So we do things. We go to recruitment fairs for sure at our 3 Manitoba universities and try to recruit teachers early. We try to get on hiring earlier than we ever have every single year. To get the best staff we can before other people are on it.
Yeah. So I imagine the hiring cycle kind of never really stops when you get to this kind of situation.
Yeah, for sure. And whether it's because of people on leave or because of growth or, there's a variety of reasons. We're kind of in hiring mode. Retirements. Yeah, we have 3 teachers who are retiring at Christmas this year. So we've posted for those positions and hired for those positions and made some adjustments. Hiring is an ongoing process for us now.
Absolutely. Well, let's switch gears a little bit.
Sure.
One of the things that I found really interesting is I had the opportunity to go into the classrooms and do a program on technology in the classroom last year. In the middle school classroom, it was really interesting to see how they were interacting with personal devices with teaching materials. I believe at the time I was told there was a 1 device for every 2 students in the classroom. The rest were bringing their own or had one available to them. And then in June or July, the province banned the use of personal electronic devices for middle schools and nearly banned it in high schools, but there's educational exemptions.
Yep.
How is that now impacting us?
Yeah, so the announcement was made in August for that, and the actual announcement was that cell phones during school hours, including lunch, would be banned for kindergarten to grade 8.
Yeah.
And in our 9 to 12 classrooms, that they would be banned. Kids can use them during breaks and lunch, and if the teacher gives them permission for educational purposes. Yeah. And to your point, there was exemptions made for certain things, kids with unique needs or medical needs, glucose monitors, whatever, those things were adjusted. But for us, I would say it wasn't a wholesale change because we already had policy in place in our school division around acceptable use for electronic devices. Right. But with that said, it definitely tightened things up and became a little more stringent for sure. And, with any change, with any directive, there's mixed reviews. I would say for the most part, what we've heard from our communities has been positive. We have a student perspective panel that we work with in our school division that consists of kids in our high schools. And we were already working with them on cell phones and how they fit into our educational institutions prior to this. And the kids were telling us, you know what, there needs to be some restrictions on these for a variety of reasons, maybe not quite as stringent as they were made, obviously through the eyes of kids. But I would say for the most part, what we've heard from our communities has been positive.
Okay, that's good to hear. Because one of the things that was interesting for me when I first heard the announcement come down was I would have at one point been on the side of, well, yeah, of course they're a distraction. You don't need them in the schools. I didn't really understand, I think, until I was in the schools, the plethora of educational purposes that devices can be put to.
Yeah.
So have you had to budget for putting more school devices in classrooms?
Yeah. So as a division, as technology has become more part, to your point, of what happens in every classroom in our school division, over the last 8 years, we've moved from about 700 devices to over 2,000 devices in our system. So yes, it is something our board has had to budget for. In our world, in education, I think we can all recognize that technology plays a vital role in our world now, but so too does human interaction, and it's finding that balance. So the two sides kind of that we hear to the argument, the pro cell phone in classrooms, and you've alluded to some of that, is kids need them. They need them readily available for communication, for research. We have people saying to us that they need them in case of an emergency. We have even people saying they need them to reduce anxiety and in some cases de-stress. The other side of that argument is that, you know, from people that sit on the other side of the argument, is that they can be distracting, which we all know. They can be used for malicious reasons, which we all know.
Yeah, for sure.
So as a school division, we've tried to ensure that our kids, our teachers, have the technology they need for those purposes without having to use cell phones. With that said, like in our high schools, if a teacher feels the best avenue is for kids to pull out cell phones and use them, that still is occurring in some of our classrooms. So it's always that balance between the goods of technology and some of the challenges. And obviously one of our main roles as a school system is to help our kids understand ethical use of technology and to model ethical use of technology. So that too was part of the expectation with the announcement, is that we were supposed to have some clear guidelines in place for the use for our staff.
Right.
And with whether it's technology or anything, to make a general statement, our expectation, what we want of our staff, myself included, our board included, is to model appropriate use of things for our kids. So if we expect it of our kids, we should be doing it in front of our kids. And that's kind of how we've proceeded with technology as well.
Because certainly if they see a teacher pulling out a cell phone in a classroom,
yeah,
they're going to want to pull out a cell phone in a classroom.
And this is nothing new. It's just now it's technology, right? You know, I think back to many years ago when we were talking about something as simple as food and beverages in halls. Pretty tough to say to kids, don't walk down the hall with a coffee if all of a sudden you see adults walking down the hall with a coffee. So, you know, I think it's, if we value it and we believe in it, we have to model it. And that's not just about technology, that's about like our core values of honesty, respect, empathy. We need to model those for our kids, and actions always speak louder than words.
I'm glad to hear that's going well and adapting well in the classrooms. And I guess I made the assumption it wasn't as huge an issue in the elementary school among students anyway, but I may be wrong about that.
Yeah, I would say it's not as big of an issue in our elementary schools, you know, in Nipawin, and I'll speak to that specifically. Being a K-4 school, probably not as big of a use, but yet we do see technology being used by kids at a younger and younger age. You know, you can go into the grocery stores and you see 4-year-olds sitting in shopping carts with their parents' cell phones, and they know how to use them.
Oh, absolutely. And the parents are asking them how to do stuff on them. So
for sure.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
So one of the things I do is I try to keep abreast of all the announcements coming down from the province, especially as they affect us here in Nipois and the schools here. One thing I saw, and we've never spoken about this before, is that funding came down, I think it was early fall, late summer, for nutrition programs in schools. Has that had an impact here?
Yeah, for sure. So early September, announcement was made by the province for $21 million in funding provincially for what was referenced as a universal nutrition program. 6 million of that was, of the 21 million, was designated specifically for 50 schools across the province that have the highest socioeconomic need, which we don't have any of those schools. What's the context for Beautiful Plains of that 21 million? We received $150,000 in additional funding to run universal nutrition programs in our schools, with the expectation that every child in every school in Beautiful Plains would have access to something nutritional throughout the day. So even prior to the announcement, we had snacks available to some of our kids that may not have access to that type of things in basically all our schools. We had a couple of our schools that were running periodic breakfast programs for kids. And what the funding allowed us to do was really to expand on all those programs. So if you were to go into any school in Beautiful Plains now, on a daily basis, our kids have access to some form of nutrition. And that can be as simple as yogurt tubes and granola bars in some cases, to full-blown, pancake breakfasts and bagels and all of it in some of our other schools. There was some criteria put on us around our $150,000 in funding. 65% of that had to be spent directly on food, and 35% of that could be spent on additional things like staffing or equipment needed, fridges and stoves and all those things to keep the food safe. So yeah, that was what the announcement meant to us.
So we had the foundations in place for a food program, and this kind of just allowed us to expand that, and we were in a position to take advantage of it, I guess.
100%. One thing that we're extremely grateful as a school division is, one, our staff. To run these programs takes manpower, and it takes commitment. Our staff have stepped up, as they always do when it's something good for kids. Organizations in our communities have stepped up, community members have stepped up, whether that's with time, whether that's with money, whether that's with helping make food. It's something we're really grateful for in our school division, is how much support we get from our communities when it comes to something that's good for our kids. And we've experienced that through this program again, and we experience that almost with everything we do.
And the program is available then to all students. It's not restricted to...
Yeah, so it was, and some people question the why behind that, but it was a universal nutrition program. And the rationale behind it, agree or disagree, is simply they don't want to stigmatize kids. So some of our kids don't have access. That's our harsh reality. They come to school, they're hungry, but they don't want those kids being identified as the kids that, so when our kids come into Nipois Collegiate, for instance, and our 500 plus kids come in, no judgment is made about who your family is or how much you make or whether you truly had breakfast. Everybody has access to the program. And, that's to destigmatize the whole piece, and everybody's welcome.
Certainly, which I think is great. I think I saw a statement the other day that really resonated with me, that kids aren't rich, parents are rich. You never know what a kid's needs are necessarily.
Yeah, and that's a strong and valuable statement. Our job is never to make assumptions about kids. We don't know what's happening in households. We don't know what's happening in families. We don't know the financial pressures some family are under. So really our job as a school system is to help our kids move forward and ensure they're in the best place possible to learn. And this is yet another way that we're grateful that we can provide our kids that need some of this, the nutrition they need.
So is there sort of anything else going on, whether in Nipois schools or division-wide, that maybe I don't know about that has come about in the last year or two?
Lots going on for sure. I would say that our schools are busy places. So whether that's, this time of year, Christmas concerts and band concerts and sporting events and all those things. As we grow, those programs become even more robust, and our schools are active places. So I encourage our community to get out as they do and support our schools and support our kids, and lots going on for sure.
Great. Well, thank you very much. Once again, as it always does, our time has kind of slipped away from us. I just want to say I appreciate you making time for me today. I know how busy you are in your role in the division with all of these changes and all this growth. So I really appreciate you coming down and talking to us today.
My pleasure. Always a great opportunity.
And thank all of you for joining us. I hope to see you again next time.